Hey everyone, welcome back to BRAP. Great to be live. Great to be live. Great to be back. So I am officially back from Florida. Had to go down to Florida for work. That's why we didn't have BRAP this Wednesday. But I came back and I said to myself, I want to do a BRAP impromptu like BRAP Saturday night show because there's actually quite a bit of news to discuss here tonight. And so we're going to get into that here as well. Big shout out to everyone in the live chat. Do me a quick favor if you could just drop a link here. I'm sorry. I'm going to drop the link here in the live chat. Do me a favor and just retweet or share the link on your favorite social media platform. But I do have with me this evening Game Logic. Logic, how are you this evening?
Good, man. Good. How are you?
Good, man. It's great to be back home. I left hot Florida to come back to very hot Washington D.C. and actually I got a little burnt today. My son had his baseball game. We're out in the field. I'm on the bleachers, have my hat on backwards, and you can actually see a tan line to where my hat was. Doesn't look good. Not a good look, but it is what it is. So, but yeah. So it's great to be back. I did enjoy the time down in Florida. It's always nice to get down to Florida. Wasn't as hot as I thought it was going to be, actually. I mean, it was still hot, but definitely not as hot as I thought it was going to be. And didn't get those, Central Florida afternoon thunderstorms they typically get. But did when I arrived back to DC, did hit a storm Friday evening, which caused a delay, actually, the plane landing. First time, Logic, that I've ever had to circle around the nation's capital, which is kind of interesting, because they had shut down the runway at the airport. But anyhow, the joys of flying, and as you know, Logic, that was a pretty adventurous trip as it was to begin with, anyway. So, Wild Wolf says just got Armored Core 6. Logic, have you picked up Armored Core 6? I have not. That's something that I'm interested in, but I'm not picking that up right now because, as you know, Starfield, the early release of Starfield is happening this week coming up. So, but did you pick up Armored Core 6?
No.
Is that something?
Yeah. I'm not like I don't go run to the store because a game comes out. I mean, I pick up games and buy them and put them in my rotation right whenever it suits me in my schedule. So it's not because I have I don't want to play Armored Core 6 or don't have a super high opinion of it. Reviews are going good, it looks like. Probably something I'll take a look at. Just like I said, I don't necessarily skate to things based on their release date.
Yeah. Yeah, so you're not like me who just buys games out of FOMO then. I get it. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, true. Because I do that. And we'll talk about Armored Core 6, as you're right. The reviews are good. So, but yeah, we definitely have a lot to talk about. There's Remnant 2. We'll talk about that here. Phil Spencer doing the unthinkable with Xbox Series S. And we're going to discuss the reveal of the PlayStation Portal and, what the device is, how much it costs, and then a little bit of the fan reaction to the PlayStation Portal, and then we'll talk about Armored Core 6 as well. But Starfield, Hamp, I do want to talk about Starfield real quick because I am really excited. We those of us who paid the premium price for early access, will have access next week. And I just can't wait.
Well, hold on. I mean, please don't put us all in the same bucket. So some of you guys paid in at a lower entry fee than some of us. So, but I'm glad that you guys still get early access.
Come on, man. Look, Logic. I get it. Some of us didn't buy 2 consolation editions. Some of us just got the $99 edition of Starfield. So, Defloid says that's start menu. Yeah, it's the start menu. Oh my goodness. That was kind of, I think we talked about that the last BRAP podcast, but anyhow. So wait, so Logic, when are your consolation editions arriving? Do you know?
They should. I should. I mean, at least the Amazon one should be getting here on the 1st. I mean, I've gotten alerts and confirmations that that it is shipping on the 31st. The shipping date was updated from when I made the original purchase, and supposedly it's shipping on the 31st, so that I have it on the 1st, which is when early access goes live.
Yeah, Friday. So Friday is the 1st, right, of September, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
then the GameStop one has been confirmed also.
Oh, so you got it from GameStop and Amazon then?
Yeah, but the GameStop one doesn't have it's not as solid as the wording with the Amazon one as far as like the ship date and delivery date, etc. It just says be prepared to basically says be prepared to pay for your order because we're going to charge you for it here soon. But it doesn't flesh out the exact chain of events that's expected to happen like the Amazon order does.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. Well, Jeff Lloyd says ball out. What's going on, DLW? So I'm excited about Starfield. I'm looking forward to playing it next week. Did they show anything new come out of Gamescom? Again, I was out of the loop because I was
there was additional footage, but I mean
nothing.
The game's out in a week. I mean, I'm not. I don't know. I expect games to be marketed, but I don't consume like every single iota of marketing information unless it's something significant. Them showing some advance. I mean, we talked about what Gamescom typically is, right? So lots of games will kind of show, I guess, what I would call confidence builder trailers, right? Like just to give us the assurances that the game is still coming out, or the game's going to be on time, or that the developers are still working on the game. But I note that those things happen, but I couldn't necessarily be bothered to go take a look at it.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, the biggest trailer of all was the leak footage, right?
Well, I didn't see that. I heard a lot of people talking. Well, I didn't say I heard. I saw people talking about it on Twitter when I could check Twitter when I was out of pocket, But yeah, I didn't see the leak thing, or I know some people were talking about it, but I didn't see that.
I haven't seen it either. I mean, I never actively chased down leaked footage. I just noted that it happened.
Okay, gotcha. All right.
I think the guy got arrested. Also, it's weird that he was picked up on a felony. That's like of all things to pick somebody up on and charge them with a felony level offense. That seems like a one, but I guess he did technically trip that wire when I guess he was trying to somehow sell additional copies.
Hold on. What happened? Wait, the guy that leaked Starfield got arrested on a felony?
Yeah, I believe it was the same. He not for the leak, but because he was also trying to sell copies.
Oh my goodness. Hold on. I'm just reading this right now. According to IGN, this is by IGN here. Let's see here. We put the article. Starfield leaker arrested after stealing and allegedly trying to sell copies of Bethesda's RPG. Here we go. This was the man who leaked the first 40 minutes or so Bethesda's highly anticipated RPG Starfield was arrested yesterday, not for leaking spoilers, but because of his theft of the game. How the heck did he steal the game? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I just saw the headline. I didn't have a chance to read it.
Yeah. The gentleman is 29 years old. He was booked yesterday in Shelby County, Tennessee on a felony charge of theft of property costing $2,500 to $10,000, a misdemeanor charge of theft of property $1,000 or less, and another misdemeanor charge of possession of marijuana, per information on the Shelby County's Sheriff's Office website.
Hey, there are things you can't do if you get convicted of a felony, like vote in a lot of places.
This is true. You can't vote. Actually limits your opportunities to certain jobs.
Very true. Very true.
That's not a good thing. Let's see. I'm one sec here. I'm reading more of this article. I'm trying to see if there's anything worth discussing from this article. Let's see. According to IGN, after some level of criticism on Harris for how he played the game, as much of the footage involved him struggling to grasp the mechanics, he posted a follow-up video. He said, Todd Howard, no offense, man, that's a good game. Perfect timing about leaving the Earth and all. It's good stuff. Pretty swell. Good moves. They were saying I play like a beginner because I'm not a game expert. I was just trying something out. All right, that's from the guy who was playing the game. The individual social media accounts, YouTube and other social media accounts, have been scrubbed of their previous videos. But according to Kotaku, Harris took things further as he began to try to sell copies of Starfield, including the $300 consolation edition on Macari. Oh man, I guess like I'd like to ask, like, what did you think was going to happen when you're trying to sell copies of a game that hasn't come out, that software that's clearly stolen, and then posting on social media? Like, that's not going to end well. All right, Logic. Let's discuss. Let's see here. Sorry, give me a sec here, man. All right, Revenant 2. I was actually, Revenant 2 is one of those games because it's a Souls-like game that was actually on my radar, Logic, but one that I'm going to pick up in the near future because there's just so much. I mean, look, I still have to get through Baldur's Gate 3. By the way, how are you progressing Baldur's Gate 3, Logic? Are you still... I know you were playing it, but have you... Like, how far are you in the game now?
Pretty much the same point I was, probably about the 10-hour point. I don't play a lot of games straight through A to B. That wasn't on the menu this week. I swung and looped back to Fire Emblem Engage, and spent some time with that, and spent some time actually playing through and finishing up Shadow Warrior 3 Definitive Edition. So that's what I've been doing this week.
Oh, nice. Okay. All right. So Revenant 2, get Souls-like game with guns. I know Slow-Mo was playing it. I don't know if he's completed the game. I know I think Ericut's for the win. I think she had completed the game, but I know Slow-Mo was playing it, seemed to enjoy it. But Revenant 2, I actually was kind of surprised by this. And this is according to Circana, which is now which used to be MPD is now Circana. So according to Circana, formerly MPD, Revenant 2 for the period of July 2nd to July 29th came in number 1 in sales for the month of July. So I was Logic, I'm kind of surprised by that. I feel like the difficulty of this game, being a Souls-like game, I was surprised that it topped number 1. It actually, number 2 actually behind Revenant 2 was Diablo 4, and then number 3 was actually Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, which went up 3 spots. It was number 6 the month before, and actually Diablo 4 was number 1 for the month of June. So Remnant 2 came in, but I still surprised to see Remnant 2 come in, considering it's a Souls-like game. So
well, and I don't feel like, in comparison to many other kind of Hollywood sign kind of level titles this year, I don't feel was particularly marketed as aggressively as a lot of those other games.
No,
so wasn't. Does that mean July was just kind of a soft month?
I don't know. I mean, they weren't any big like AAA releases that were like heavily advertised. That were in that zeitgeist. Maybe. I mean, that could be it. And as I'm looking down the chart, and that could be it, because if you look at, let's see here. Let's see here.
Everything on the chart had been out for a while. I mean, it just looks like a month where
Hogwarts Legacy's there, number 4.
Yeah, it just looks like a month where pretty much everybody who had, the people who were going to buy these other games that are on the list had mostly already bought them. And so the one new thing that popped and maybe caused like a big suction of attraction to people who were looking for something new was Remnant 2. I think that's the only new game in the list that came out last month, except Exo Primal came out in July, right? Which is which is weird to me that it's that high on the list, given that it's not that great a game.
Yeah, Logic, give me a quick second here.
Yeah, no problem. We'll continue running down the list while BRAP steps away. Yeah, suction law. So yeah, just to round out some other things on the list that kind of caught my eye, as we mentioned, Remnant 2 in at number 1, Diablo 4 in at number 2. Again, this is, let me double check this. This is U.S. monthly sales charts for July. COD number 3, Hogwarts Legacy at 4, Final Fantasy 16 at 5, Pikmin was in at 6, Tears of the Kingdom in at 7, Street Fighter 6 in at 8. Elden Ring, MLB The Show, Star Wars Jedi Survivor, Mario Kart 8. There was a resurgence in some of the old Call of Duty games due to them being restored to availability, I guess, on Xbox Live, or Xbox Live, on Xbox backwards compatibility or whatever. Black Ops 2 and Black Ops 3 wound up in the charts. Minecraft, FIFA. Like I said, I was surprised by Exoprimal, because Exoprimal, as far as I understood, is not that great a game, and it kind of shows the strength and the capability of a new title that is a game as a service that is multiplayer, still being able to hit a high point of attraction in its first month of release. A lot of times, people, I think, do a lot of backclapping and cheerleading and pom-pomming some of these games when they initially launch. And I routinely say my personal feeling is you don't measure a game like that until it's in its 6th month and or it hits its kind of first post-release season, and see how the engagement is at that point. So, sales are good. Interesting again that a game like that also went with the paid route, because it's not a free-to-play game.
Yeah.
Spider-Man Resurgence still in the zeitgeist. It's on everybody's mind as Spider-Man 2 preps to launch. One of the games I've been playing, Dead Island 2, still holding it on the charts at number 19.
Yeah. I was really surprised to see Mario Kart 8 still there.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about on enough to keep going about, what it's going to be interesting to see what Nintendo does with Mario Kart as we go into this next generation of hardware. It was super interesting to hear that Nintendo intends for there to be continuity of your online account from Nintendo Switch to whatever's coming next, which is the first time, as far as I understand, in the last, since the Nintendo Wii, that has been the case. Typically as you move from each hardware base to hardware base, that, a new store thing comes along and you have to re-register and re-up your accounts. So it's going to be interesting that there's going to be continuity, and we talked a little bit about whether or not, is Mario Kart like their new flagship, essentially, where there's lots of continuity, lots of tracks. They don't appear to be spooling up to do a Mario Kart 9 at any point, and if that game's just going to continue to be their big, essentially what equates to them as their big game as a service, and that it's going to be cross-generational, or at least, it may not necessarily have cross-play between Nintendo Switch 2 and Nintendo Switch 1, but it'll just be interesting to see if the franchise is maintaining continuity and if it's going to be backwards compatible on the next hardware set.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to be. I think we had this discussion about Nintendo and backwards compatibility. I don't see them doing that. I could be wrong. I just don't see them do that, though.
Yeah, but I mean, by the same time, like I just said, the same thing is weird as that there's going to be continuity of their online service, right, from this console to the next, which also hasn't been their norm. So that's just kind of why we're curious to see what they're going to do about it.
Yeah, that's a great point. The Black Ops 2, Black Ops 3 charting was actually, I was surprised to see that, but that was, I think, driven by Microsoft. What was it? They fixed the online servers, I think it was. Yeah,
I forget what they did. They did something to re-enable gameplay for those titles on Xbox. I don't know if it was a backwards compatibility thing or a Game Pass thing or whatever. But for whatever reason, they became available again. I guess with multiplayer, like you said, maybe they patched the servers or something, and everybody kind of rushed over there to play those legacy titles.
Okay.
I think that's where the acquisition of victory parties were also being held. So,
you said the victory parties are being held there?
Yeah, that's where everybody was getting their champagne service, breaking open their bottles of bubbly, and playing games like it was 2010.
Yeah, exactly. It's probably the first time they played games in quite some time. Anything else stand out to you about the Circana MPD numbers?
There are a few things I ran them down while you stepped away for a second. So
okay, all right. So that's July Circana MPD numbers. I do want to talk about. I know we were just talking about Armored Core 6, but I want to talk about the reviews for Armored Core 6. And I don't know if you saw this, Logic, but Armored Core 6 actually, for a From game, is having its highest concurrent user active users on Steam. When you compare it to some of the other releases like Sekiro and one of the Dark Souls games, I forget which one. So it seems to be doing pretty well on Steam for a From game. But Armored Core 6 just released yesterday, and it's actually trending right now at 87 Metacritic. The user score
I think it's 87 on PC, 87 on PS5, and 80 on Xbox.
Yeah, 80 on Xbox. 56 of the reviews are on PlayStation 5, and let me look at PC here. 29 reviews for PC, and 9 reviews on Xbox.
Wow, really? Yeah. I mean, the upended PlayStation Xbox review numbers I was always aware of. I didn't think that was the case also between PC and Xbox. I've never really looked at it.
I would have thought that there'd be more Xbox reviews than PC, because I feel like that's typically the case. Kevin Max asking, are the lower Xbox scores for Armored Core performance issues? No, that's just the Metacritic. Look, there just hasn't been a lot of reviews for the game on Xbox, which I think is why you have it at 80 right now. Let's see here. Like most of the Attack of the Fanboy reviewed it on Xbox. They gave it an 80. Digital Trends gave it a 60. See here, Digital Trends said Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon is a powerful mech flying with faulty thrusters, a fast-paced action game loaded with thrilling dogfights and simulating mech customization. Is dragged down by all too familiar From Software quirks like illegible UI and a headache-inducing third-person camera. It's not enough to fully spoil an exciting ride, but it doesn't leave me wondering how far a good tune-up would have gone. So that's a quick summary from Digital Trends. But all the other reviews have been pretty positive for the Xbox.
Yeah, so it's just because it's small numbers. The two low scores are kind of really dragging everything down. Xbox Era giving it a 65, and like you said, Digital Trends giving it a 60.
Xbox Era gave it a 65?
Yeah. So two low scores. So with only 9 scores on the board, 2 low scores are kind of. I mean, 80 is not a bad score. I mean, overall.
Yeah, I don't even see Xbox Era here on the Metacritic.
Yeah, they're down at the bottom.
As they should be. You know, they already set that narrative that Starfield's not going to get a fair shake, you know.
Right. You know, you asked the question and I mean, it's likely that I'll play Armored Core 6. I will, just as a new title that, like I said, appears to be doing well on the boards for this year. I will admit, though, part of my struggle in being super interested in Armored Core 6 is, and I made this comment on Twitter, like being somebody who comes from the vehicle sim side of things, calling Armored Core 6 a mech sim to me is not an appropriate label. And so, you know, playing a mech game with a controller is just with the game controller is not really, something that I'm super interested in. You know, if it was really a mech sim, I'd be much more interested. But You know,
look, if it was a mech sim, it'd be still be Italian 2, and you'd have to get the whole setup with the desk.
Right. Which is how I used to play Mech Warrior 3, and how I would play Heavy Gear 2. So,
Heavy Gear.
It's a 3D action adventure game, with people in armor. So, but like I said, I'll still probably play it.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I'll eventually get to it, but not anytime soon. Probably late this year, early 2024, just because again, it's there's just so much content coming out right now. But still, I mean, the reviews are pretty good. I mean, and 87 is nothing to sneeze about. Which always, again, I mean, which leads me to go back to this conversation that we've had on the show about, where 2023 slots in terms of, best years in gaming. I mean, this is one of the better years. I mean, Armored Core 6, we have Starfield coming out. We still have Spider-Man 2. We still have Forza. We still have, I think, didn't the Cyberpunk DLC release too yesterday?
I thought it was September.
No, it is September.
I mean, if we're gonna talk about, I can't remember if we have game stuff announced at Gamescom on the agenda tonight, but there's, I mean, even during the week of Gamescom, there were still games announcing that they were dropping in October. That's just crazy.
Alan Wake 2, we got another trailer for that. That looks really good. But you're right. I mean, there were some games I caught some snippets of Gamescom, but you're right. I mean, there's still more stuff coming out. It's crazy. And that's what I'm saying. Like this year, and I don't think it gets discussed enough. This year has been just an amazing year for video games. It's been a very strong year. I mean,
it is.
Yeah, go ahead.
Up until maybe July, I was holding the line that I was still. It still hadn't surpassed 2017 for me yet, but I think I gotta give it up to 2023 now after the announcements dropped after Gamescom.
You might have to bend the knee.
It's very true. That's also very funny because that is what I'm binge watching right now is Game of Thrones.
There you go. So you might have to bend the knee, man. You might have to bend the knee because it's been a solid. I mean, this year is just. I mean, it's. I would say 2017 is the last wow year for, at least for me, for gaming, and 2023 is now surpassed that for me.
Well, here's where I do.
Yeah.
Here's where I do still have to hold back a little. I'm actually not going to go over the edge on that just yet. Mm-hmm. For volume of releases, yes. However, in my opinion, there's still a black mark on the industry that they are still putting out games from very big teams with very big budgets that are not performant. And actually, that thought just crept into my mind because I was playing, like I said, Shadow Warrior 3 Definitive Edition this week, and that game is performant. And that's a much, much, much smaller team, much smaller budget. And I don't get it. And I made the same comment about Dead Island 2. Maybe not the best graphics on the market, but it does incredibly well for a game that was in development hell from a relatively small team in comparison to, Respawn Entertainment, right? So we just had, what is it? The thing of, what is the thing that just came out from EA? Immortals of Avium just came out. I mean, there's an endemic problem in the industry with hitting performance benchmarks, and I don't totally. I mean, I understand it. I don't understand why the deadlock in contention between the hardware guys and the software guys hasn't been broken yet.
Is it because of lazy devs? I mean, but why do you think this is happening, Logic? Because you're right. I mean, it is something that we've been seeing quite a bit this year. I mean, with this EA game, and I forget the what's it called? Avium. What the heck's it called? You just said
Immortals of Avium.
Yeah. We know about the issues with Star Wars. But why do you think this has been an issue? I mean, is it just like, hey, I wonder, is this something where it's like, okay, the pandemic hit, it stalled a lot of development. It caused some issues, delays, and now it's like, okay, we got to get these things out now.
No, I mean that's not my perspective. I just don't know. It's the deadlock that I'm talking about, and the thing that's a weirdism to me, and that I can't get around. And the weird thing to me also is that how broadly it is extrapolated across the entire industry.
Yeah.
Is, NVIDIA and AMD made hardware, right? The Intel and AMD made hardware. The devs want to continue to push the envelope, and for some reason, that to me is at a volume of being unusual in past eras of the gaming industry. We've hit this point where devs are continuously pushing that boundary and appear to not be willing to back off. And I don't entirely understand. I don't understand how the industry as an artistic cohort has settled on, the envelope of what's acceptable for games, right? To be at 30 frames per second, and some of these games not even a consistent 30 frames per second, and that to be a shoulder shrug, and in some games not to get patched, right, to the point where they are more performant, and then some games are, and then the games that are more performant that are coming from small teams don't get a big marketing push behind them. I mean, the Steam community raises them up, right, but with their level of reviews, but the media is not necessarily raising them up. I mean, it's probably not too long before I'm going to turn the corner and just start feeling like it's kind of ridiculous to a certain extent. I think maybe, arguably, that that Jedi Survivor is in the discussion for Game of the Year.
Well,
right?
It's going to be. I mean, it's going to be because of. I mean, it did review well, but you're right. It had issues. It still does.
Yeah. I almost think, and I mean, I've read a lot of reviews of a lot of different things. I've dabbled in, writing reviews in a lot of different genres and areas and portions of pop culture and read a lot. One of the things that I always liked when reading motorcycle reviews is that motorcycle reviews typically from the big magazines would do both initial reviews, and then they would have a section like in the back of the magazine for long-term reviews. And I almost feel like I'm getting to the point where games need to be reviewed at launch, and then they need to have like 6 months after, like, post follow-up reviews on what we call in IT O&M, right? How well has the game been maintained? How many and how frequently has it gotten patches? How has the performance been improved since launch? And I know in some cases, like with a Redfall, it's not unusual that somebody will loop back around and actually do a re-review, right? Or TLU on PC, right? I know magazines and websites will kind of do that, but I'm kind of slipping to the point where I feel like, I don't know, I'm starting to question whether or not that should just be the standard for games, because so many of them at such a high volume are. And I'm not trying to frame this I'm not saying it's a bad argument, but it's just a common argument. I'm not trying to frame it in the common argument that, like, none of these games are good when they first come out, and no game is good until 6 to 8 months, 9 months post-launch. But, again, at the volume it's happening, and that, like I said, it seems like this deadlock between the hardware guys and the software guys, and no agreement coming down on, I don't want to say 4K 30 isn't acceptable, but like only being 4K 30 is not necessarily acceptable, or only being 4K 60 and then having a lot of kind of brokenness in terms of graphical fidelity, like, when we have the discussion about Jedi Survivor, that's not acceptable. That it just seems like almost the bigger the game, the more it pushes the envelope, and the less it's willing to find a reasonable landing place of multiple modes, multiple speeds, multiple resolutions that suit a lot of different needs so that people can play, how they want. I just kind of don't get it.
Yeah. I want to grab the super chat by T-Rock. What's up, T-Rock? The $5 super chat. T-Rock, we need to run some Fortnite. It's been quite some time, man. That could have been too long since we ran Fortnite. But T-Rock with the $5 super chat says, I learned last night that playing Armored Core while at BRAP level drunk isn't a good combo. What's good, BRAP? Thank you for that, T-Rock. Appreciate the super chat. Great to see you as well. Yeah, but no, you're right, Logic. Like from a performance standpoint, we are seeing those reoccurring performance issues with big budget titles. We're seeing games that aren't getting patched. I mean, I think the obvious for me, the one that really sticks out for me is Redfall. Like that game released and like there's nothing. Like there's no word of a patch or any updates to the game, and the game launched performance issues, but there's no, as far as I know, and maybe there have been updates. I'm not aware of any, but we haven't heard anything. So
yeah, and I'm like I said, I'm at the point now where I can't give Jedi Survivor. I mean, Jedi Survivor to me is not as egregious as the Redfall thing, but it's still, not good in my opinion. When again, it's Respawn Entertainment, it's Vince Zampella, it's EA.
Yeah, I mean, you expect with Vince and company. For me, it's just, there's a high bar with them.
Very much so.
Yeah, and they didn't meet that bar in terms of performance. I mean, look, the game itself was good. It's a good, and I probably put, I don't know, like 20 hours into the game so far. But what I played from it, I've enjoyed. But there are issues there, issues that I just didn't expect being there.
Well, and that to me is a benchmark, right? Being somebody who hears your dialogue on games, very frequently, the fact that game landed, the fact that it's Star Wars for you, and you weren't compelled to burn through that game A to B, right, probably says something about where that game is and how it landed.
Yeah, and then I'm playing Tears of the Kingdom, and it's like it's perfection.
And you can't put it down, right? No, Tears of the Kingdom and Baldur's Gate 3, between those two games, you can't put them down.
I mean, like Baldur's Gate 3, there might be some hiccups here and there, but the game plays very well. But you're right. Like part of the reason why I stopped playing Star Wars Jedi Survivor is because of those issues. I was like, I'm not going to play this anymore. The amount of stuttering and like frame rate drop, I was like, I'm not doing this. This takes away from my enjoyment of the game, from being immersed in the Star Wars universe. And I said, I'll just come back to it when they fix it.
And you were playing on PC too, weren't you?
Yeah, I was playing on PC. Yep, I was playing on PC. So, those issues. And I have to be honest with you, I think had I not been a Star Wars fan, I probably would have waited to buy it, But, I'm a Star Wars fan, and I really enjoyed the last Star Wars game that they put out, which was good. And I don't think that one had as many performance issues. I could be wrong, but I don't think it did.
Well, and I also think that and this is my thing. I feel like last generation, between that last generation and this generation, we were knocking on the door of the same performance envelope that we're trying to push now. I feel like PC games were relatively fine at 1440p, just making a broad kind of overall statement on the industry, right? But I feel like flash forward to this generation, these consoles are still not hitting marks at 4K 30, 4K 60, right? Across games that have big marketing budgets, big teams, big budgets overall. And I feel like suddenly, I feel like I'm seeing a lot more problems in the PC space with those same titles, despite the fact that there's been upgraded silicon, and I don't get it.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense to me either. I mean, you're right. I mean, we have new GPUs, new CPUs, but we're still having these issues on the PC side. Yeah, go ahead.
Unless you're on the highest end hardware, like if you're on a 3080, 3080 Ti, a 4080, 4090, right? Then those people, have no complaints generally.
Yeah,
seems like.
Yeah.
Then again, this is my feeling, and I will admit it's anecdotal. This is the type of thing that I say that I feel this way, and then I'll need to go off and pull data and make sure that the numbers line up with the way I'm feeling. But That's just my overall takeaway.
Yeah.
But you know what makes up for 4K 30 is console wraps. That give your console,
it's a great
helps you makes you feel like gaming companies understand culture.
Xbox does understand gaming culture, so I've been told. Yeah, that's a great segue. I gotta say, I love that idea by Microsoft. It's an easy, quick way, affordable way, in my opinion, to customize your console. You know, and the Starfield one looked great. So, what are your thoughts on the wraps? What do you think?
I'm gonna order one for my Xbox, for my Series X, and it's like we've been saying. Look, I love custom console editions as much as the next person. I was very, very super happy when I bought my PlayStation 4 Pro and I bought the Destiny 2, Arctic White edition. But it's clear that in an era where they're closely following behind where there were supply chain constraints, and both of these companies have finally barely come up and hit the mark where consoles are able to be pumped out and put out at retail and shelves stocked, that neither of them are interested in spending the money to build out the manufacturing or to take from the manufacturing capacity to allocate a production line to a custom console edition. So people gave PlayStation crap for doing plastic sideboards, plastic panels, but now that we see both of those two console manufacturers taking the same approach, it should be relatively clear. And Armored Core 6 collector's edition bundle came out, and that thing is not a functional Xbox Series X, which again shows that Microsoft, is not interested in allocating manufacturing capacity to making a custom console edition.
Yeah, I remember someone had asked Aaron Grieber how come they don't do more custom consoles, and I think he said more or less the juice wasn't worth the squeeze for them to do it.
Right, and a weird way of discussing it that I've heard on on the larger podcasts is people have talked about both this and the Spider-Man edition in terms of things that would make them go out and buy it, and that I don't think that's not the way I assess the market. I mean, console enthusiasts who are going to go out and spend $1,000 in a console generation just to acquire a collector's edition, like I don't go out and buy a second edition of a console in a generation unless there's a reason for me to buy a second one, either because there's a mid-cycle upgrade, which has only happened essentially once in the industry history, and then when I bought a second PlayStation 3 because I wanted to have one on the main level and I wanted to put one in my basement. But generally, like a console edition, PlayStation blah 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 Slim comes out, or a collector's edition. I don't go out and buy that unless my original console is on the fritz or kind of dying, or I have concerns about its reliability and I think I need to swap it out. But like I don't go and buy it because it's a collector's edition. I go out and buy it because I have some other reason that drives me to to need a secondary console or to replace it. Yeah. So I don't look at these things as Microsoft and PlayStation need to do something to cause you to get up out of your seat and go buy it. I think they make them available, and their assumption is that super enthusiasts will go buy it. People who are in the use cases that I talked about will go buy it, and people who are coming into the console generation, because not everybody buys their consoles year one, right? People who are coming into the console generation at that point, right in the life cycle phase, will go after those collector's editions.
So we have an idiot in the live chat. The base teacher says Baldur's Gate is beyond woke trash. Sorry about that, Logic. Go ahead, man.
No, that's cool. But I will. Like I said, I'm gonna wait for these collector's editions to ship and pay for those. But then at that point, I will go ahead and get the controller, the headset, and the wrap.
Yeah, no, and actually, again, I think the price point's great. It's $50.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, $50 here, U.S., Canada, Europe, $50. Yeah, $50. Yeah, it's I think that's great. I mean, it's and so they're doing the Starfield, which I think is the best one, and they're also releasing the Storm Cloud Vapor one, and what's the other one now?
Like an Arctic camouflage or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's what it's called. Yeah.
And the other thing that's neat about these is, they're better than wraps. It's again, I saw a lot of commentary downplaying. Why do a wrap? Blah blah blah. And I'm like, well, because when I want to trade my console in at the end of this generation to go buy the upgrade for the new console, I don't have to worry about peeling back the corner of the wrap, applying alcohol to the box, cleaning it up. I just take the this sleeve off of it rather than worrying about pulling adhesive, whatever that material is, glue or whatever, off of skins that other people use to upgrade to modify the look of their console.
Yeah, my son actually just did that with his Series X. He actually got he got like the stickers or whatever you put on it.
Yeah, I've never done that.
Yeah, he did that, and then he put more stickers on top of it. So his Series X looks like a skateboard now. But hey, you know what? He paid for it, so if that's what he wants to do with it, yeah. But the wrap looks clean. I think it looks really nice. I tell you, the Starfield one is, I mean, that if I still had a Series X, that's the one I would go with, just to complement my my Starfield controller, which I think is the best custom controller. I will say this though, Logic, the best custom console, in my opinion, ever was on the Xbox 360, and that was the R2-D2 one.
Oh, nice.
Remember that?
Nice.
Yeah, that one was great. Oh man, I tell you, the Spider-Man plates, man, I missed out on that one. They were sold out. I mean, they sold out right away.
Yeah, I have the Cosmic Red ones, and I just don't. I mean, I have the Cosmic Red ones, and I have 2 Cosmic Red Dual Senses, and I'm like, I see the other ones come out, and I'm just like, I don't know that I'm up for swapping plates out again and buying another controller for them to match and all that. I mean, they're nice. Again, it's great for people who are coming into the market at that point, but I don't. In my head, they're not like an upgrade, beyond my Cosmic Red ones. My Cosmic Red ones already make my PlayStation look a little more, individualized than every other PlayStation.
Yeah, no, and I have I still have my I haven't swapped out my plates. I would have if I was able to secure the Spider-Man 2 ones, and I don't know, are they going to release any more of those plates, or was that a one-time thing? I know when Forte was on last, he'd mentioned that they're getting more Spider-Man 2 PlayStation 5 consoles, but they weren't getting any additional plates to swap out.
Yeah, I think I'm guessing that they'll do plates.
Yeah, because I feel like
Sony's not like Nintendo. They don't try and put things back in the Disney vault.
No, because I feel like that's such an easy sell for them. It's like you already have people that have PlayStation 5s that will spend I forget how much the plates are retailing for. That will go out and just swap the plates out.
Look, man, PlayStation's focused on trying to manufacture these PlayStation Portal things for the back half of the year. I'm sure more plates will come out after that.
And who asked for that, by the way?
I don't know, man. Other people, not only who asked for it, but there are people who feel it's anti-consumer.
It is anti-consumer. I mean, who asked for it? That's what I want to know.
Well, I tell you, I think the people who might have asked for it might be people who, only have one major television in their house that's like the gaming console compatible television. People who maybe don't have dictatorial rule hegemony over that TV, and people who don't want to futz around with iOS and Android and making an app work to do remote play versus a pick up and play experience. I think maybe those are the people who may have asked for PlayStation Portal.
Yeah, what's interesting is that I feel like the one thing consumers tend to do is that when they see a product that they don't like, or they feel like, is it like Like, is it something that they would use? They
It's not made for them.
It's not made for them. They believe that that's in fact how the rest of the market thinks, and therefore it's not worth of any value. And it's like, no, it's not worth of any value to you. But they are.
No, they feel it's a bad decision by the company. Look, Look, I have been buying and acquiring gadgets for a very long time and reviewing them and in this space for a very long time, not just gaming, but just technology in general. And I get it. I too, in my younger years, have gotten mad when I would see a company building something that was not the thing that I wanted. But I think as you get older and you think through the space more and you wind up being in these conversations at companies making these decisions, you understand that, not every product is made for you and your use case and your scenario and your requirements. And that doesn't mean that it's a bad decision for the company. There's lots of reasons to not do the things that I've seen rampant suggestions about all week. Why didn't they do a dedicated handheld console? Well, think about Apple and the fact that a lot of the people who are in the executive positions at Apple now, I'm talking at the C level, were at Apple 20 something years ago when they were $150 million from going out of business. And those executives like hoarding cash. So they don't have a lot of arguments with the board about spending all of their cash. By the same token, people who are in leadership now at PlayStation were around for the failure of the Vita, and they are not interested in going down that path again. And part of the reason for the failure of the Vita was just as analysts talked about during then, which is there was the rise of mobile. Lots of people have to have smartphones now, essentially. And so people ask the question, why would I go out and buy a dedicated handheld console when I have to have a smartphone and I can play games there? And the other harsh reality today is the mobile market and mobile handsets, phones, and tablets are far more capable now than they were when the Vita came out. So it would be even more challenging to enter that space. And you have the Nintendo Switch, which is more capable than the 3DS was. So, or the Nintendo DS or DSi or whatever was out at the time. So, and the big kicker is, I think what people forget is when Sony did that, they had to also dedicate development resources to it. And that is probably the largest investment that would have an impact on their overall brand and production pipeline. They either had to take production capacity out of the studios who were making full-scale PlayStation games, so PlayStation 5 games, and put them on mobile iterations, right, in their release cadence, or they had to have dedicated studios doing that. Either way, that would be more dollars going to those resources to make that investment for a play that may not buy them a whole bunch. You might get a few other people into the ecosystem through the mobile route, which also I don't necessarily know that that's what PlayStation wants. I don't necessarily know that PlayStation wants people to have the option to come into the PlayStation ecosystem via a mobile handset versus the full-scale console. And what would that mobile handset cost? If they got this thing down to $199, you're talking about asking people to pay $299, $399, $499 for a mobile handset that probably isn't necessarily going to have great competitive, be a great competitive play on the market. So,
yeah, that's a great point. I mean, but I think that's a piece that people tend to miss, what you just described. You discussed the Vita, how gaming has expanded. Really, I mean, gaming on mobile is just huge, and how the mobile devices are so much more capable now in terms of what you can do, and even accessing content now through things like Game Pass, where you can stream games on your mobile device and have, I don't want to say console-like experiences, but you can have some pretty good experiences at times on Game Pass. You on your mobile phone or on your handheld device or your tablet. So, but I want to just quickly discuss some of the details with regards to the PlayStation Portal. The retail price for the device is going to be $199 here in the US, 199 pounds, 219 in euros. It will let you stream your PS5 straight to the palm of your hands via Wi-Fi. It comes with an 8-inch LCD screen that boasts a 1080p resolution, supports up to 50 frames per second, and the Portal's controller parts are based on the DualSense. So that means that the device will have, the haptic feedback, the adaptive triggers and haptic feedback as well. And it's got a 3.5 millimeter audio jack as well, so that you can stick your wired headphones to the device as well. Yeah, it's not for me. I don't need this device, but I could see why someone would want to have a $200 handheld, whether they can use, like you said, there are people. I mean, that's, Logic. I think like my frustration again with the conversation at times in the gaming community, and I know you mentioned it, but the one thing that always kind of makes me shake my head is that people just aren't aware that there are people out there that want. And this goes back to the whole split screen thing. Remember that the conversation around split screen, and I saw it recently with Baldur's Gate. Somebody tweeted today.
Nobody uses it. Nobody cares.
No, there are people that use it. Just because you don't use it doesn't mean no one uses it, or that no one wants that feature. And it's frustrating because consumers have different tastes. They want different things, have different expectations. And I think that the issue with gamers at times, they feel like they're the consumer and everything in the industry is centered around them and their taste. And that's not the case.
Yeah, so a recurring line of conversation that we used to have on Enough to Keep Going during the Wii U era was the guys on the show would often talk about how, they would, in most households, I would contend, as far as I believe, that and you and I have had this discussion, that the major television, the one you spend the most money on, is the one that is in a public space where multiple people use that TV. I'd say that's the case in most households. It's not the case in my household, but in most households, that's what it is. So, in today's era, what that means is that the TV in the house that is the high refresh rate TV that has VRR, ALLM, multiple HDMI 2.1 slots is one that's in a central area that multiple people use. Contrary to maybe what some gamers believe, a male gamer is not necessarily the king of his or her household, and therefore doesn't have hegemony over the television. And so sometimes other people want to watch it. Sometimes the kids want to watch it. Sometimes the wife wants to watch it. I was listening to Kind of Funny Games Daily the other day, and Greg Miller was talking about this exact same scenario, right, that my guys have talked about on our show, which is, at certain points of the night, the wife is watching the television, is doing her wind down, and they would be in the room, right, with her, playing a game on the Wii U remote screen. And so there are these instances where somebody else wants to use that screen that your PlayStation 5 might be hooked up to, and you may want to go play remotely. Now, I don't think that those are super huge big numbers, but I also don't think that this is a device that Sony is looking to sell 40 million units of either. And again, you and I have had this discussion earlier this week, right? An understanding needs to be that not every single product made by every single tech company, every single game company is made with the intention of gaining the largest market share or selling or taking over the market or selling, 40 million units. What I think over the life cycle of the PlayStation 5, they probably hope to sell, 5 million or so of these units to the top 1-2% of their most, rabid install base along the lines of the PSVR 2, right? And that'll make them happy for the level of investment that they're putting into it. Because let's also remember that in general, to sell more units of a thing, you need to invest more money, which impacts total resources that are available.
Yeah, and I saw some people saying, they wanted to dedicate a handheld device. Well, then you're pulling development resources away from PlayStation 5. And again, that costs more money for Sony to do that. The other thing I want to mention is at $199, you got to imagine, Hamp, that this isn't a product that is costing Sony a lot to develop. To me, at least, in my opinion, this seems kind of like an easy, this thing's not going to cost us a lot of money. We know there's a group of people within the ecosystem. We could sell this thing at $200. It's easy to make. It doesn't cost a lot. And there are going to be people that are going to buy this. It just seems like an easy thing for me to do. Very, very Apple-esque, by the way.
I mean, look, I don't know what all the internals are on this, but look, there is not some Qualcomm Snapdragon Gen 2 Plus chip in here. Exactly. One of the things I'm disappointed about, quite frankly, of all the things that people have talked about them being disappointed about, the thing that I'm actually disappointed about is that it's a 1080p 60 hertz screen. I feel like for the panels that are being manufactured now, that they could have gotten something with a higher refresh rate and still stayed within the $199 cost. It's just, my opinion. They are the weird thing that people don't like is that it uses proprietary technology to connect wireless headphones. So you cannot connect to this with straight stick Bluetooth. The compensating factor for that in my mind is that it has a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack. Now, what I haven't thought entirely through is because I too am seeing things through the Coke bottle of my own use cases, and because I review studio gear and live streaming gear, I have like 9 pairs of wired headphones, right? High-end wired headphones. I don't know. I haven't situated in my head yet whether or not the average consumer, the average gaming consumer, has like one primary set of Bluetooth headphones. But even then, a lot of my Bluetooth headphones and my wireless gaming headsets have a 3.5 millimeter wire so that they can connect even when Bluetooth isn't available. So that's the one thing. But my main opinion about that is I think, people have called that anti-consumer. People have called that, various things. And it's weird when you think back through the history, because at the beginning of this generation, a lot of people gave Sony credit for going with the M2 PCIe NVMe drive. And we're like, this is the way Sony always thinks. And I'm like, let's not forget the 20, 30 years of history of the company that gave us Betamax, right? And every proprietary technology that they've tried to push as part of their...
The UMDs?
Right. And then, and they were, the big leaders in the consortium behind Blu-ray, which eventually won that format war. I mean, so with that one exception, Sony, in my mind, has always pushed a proprietary technology. And so this is not unusual to me.
No, it's not. And they've always like within their own ecosystem, always sold add-ons.
Right. Exactly. For their most rabid fans.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, remember it was cool to have like a Sony stereo system in your house, and then
I very much remember.
And then if you had the yellow Walkman Sport, remember that?
Yeah, I mean, in my era before before gaming and consoles and thing became all the. I mean, everybody, you and I have talked about this before. Everybody, your big major purchase in college or coming right out of college was your stereo component system. Yeah.
Then I graduated to Onkyo. And then Nakamichi.
Right. Everybody went after the Sony components and speakers, and
And then it was Denon.
Yeah. So it's again, this is a prestige project. It's an Apple-esque play. I saw a clip from Marquez Brownlee, who and I have a lot of respect for Marquez. I tend not to agree with, like 82% of his opinion on things, but. And he was like, this is a more anti-consumer play than Apple. And I'm like, no, I wouldn't give Apple that pass. Apple took the headphone jack out, and that was a super aggressive move. And yes, everybody could utilize, their Bluetooth headset, but that was a time and era in the industry and in the market where I don't feel like the norm was for most consumers to have a primary mid to higher end set of Bluetooth headphones. I think the base that most consumers had at the time was a wired pair that used a 3.5 millimeter jack. And so when Apple pulled that, I don't give Apple a pass for being, less anti-consumer than Sony did in this case. And tons of Apple software, only runs on Apple devices. So I don't think it's the take that, a lot of people are coming at it with, I don't think.
So I'm sorry. What did I miss about his take on why is his anti-consumer?
Because this thing doesn't use straight stick Bluetooth. In order to connect wireless headphones to it, you will have to use the Pulse Elite or In fact, I'm not absolutely certain the Pulse 3D connects to it, but you have to get that Sony iLink module or whatever.
Yeah. Okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah. So basically, therefore, if you want that option, there's no workaround. You're
right,
quote unquote forced to buy it. Well,
the workaround is that you use wired headphones.
Yeah, but you're forced if you want.
Well, yes. Unless you want to get uber nerd geeky about it, yes, you are forced if you want to go wireless to use the proprietary Sony headphones or earbuds.
Yeah. Look, I'm not going to begrudge anyone who's upset about that. But I wouldn't. I wouldn't say I don't think it's anti-consumer per se. Like I just don't. Because I feel like, you know what, and
I just don't believe in that term. Like to me,
yeah, I feel like I don't know, man. Like I understand not having the option, but I mean, but I'm also a believer of you don't have to buy it too.
Well, right. I mean, I don't. Yeah. My personal feeling is there's nothing that's anti-consumer about a company making a product, putting out specifications, announcing it, making it clear to consumers what you're buying if you choose to buy it. There's nothing anti-consumer about that. The only thing that's anti-consumer to me is you buying a warranty and them not following through on the warranty, or false advertising. But anything that's upfront, I just don't see that as anti-consumer.
Actually, that's kind of where I was going. I'm like, you're going into this knowing what the expectation is, what the requirements are, and as a consumer, you make a choice. Either I'm going to buy it, and you may buy it kicking or screaming. I mean, so LM wants to know, how's it not anti-consumer? And it's not anti-consumer, LM. It's not anti, it's anti with not a Y, a T. Maybe you hit the Y key is next to the T key, so I can see why you did that. But we just explained why we don't think it's anti-consumer, because let me hold on a sec here. I know where this conversation is going to go now, Hamp. See, I'm going to have to do this now. Hold on a sec. All right, so anti-consumer, according to Webster's, not favorable to consumers, improperly favoring the interests of business over the interests of consumers.
Yeah, and I mean, again, the PlayStation 5 also doesn't have straight stick Bluetooth. You connect the Pulse 3D headset to the PlayStation 5 using a dongle. It uses wireless headsets, other wireless headsets, but you connect to those using a dongle. So.
I guess for me, it's like if you went into this having no choice at all, then yeah, I think I would agree with that. Anti-consumer, you have no choice; you have to buy it. Or
if there was no other audio option.
Yeah, well, I was about to say that, or if there was no other option, but you have two options. You can either, if you want, go that route, or you have to go the 3.5 millimeter. I get it. Like I understand. There's people who are going to be upset about that. I get that. I'm not going to fault anybody. I'm begrudge anyone for feeling that way, but what I'm saying, I don't think that fits the mold of being anti-consumer, in my opinion. Right. I don't see that. I just feel like anti-consumer is thrown around. The problem what's happened with the definition of anti-consumer is when someone doesn't like something, they say, "Oh, that's anti-consumer."
Right. When in fact it's just anti-consumer to you. Right. If we'll see how it sells, and if everybody else agrees that way, then nobody will buy it. But what we see time and time again is that all consumers are not the same. Everybody isn't hung up about the same things that are a requirement for you. And just because it's a requirement for you, and the device doesn't meet that, doesn't fit the label of anti-consumer, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Yeah, I mean,
I'll throw one more thing in the thing that equates to anti-consumer is also bundling something, like you said, giving you no choice to buy it. So to me, cable bundling was anti-consumer, right? Forcing me to buy ESPN if I had no interest in ESPN or Viacom or HGTV or whatever goofy Japanese gladiatorial battle thing, so that's not a knock on the Japanese. That's just because those shows were bundled in that to me is anti-consumer. Like when you have no option to buy it, like food menus that force you to buy a food item that you don't really want. I remember a time, I think when they first originally, and I'm old, when they first originally rolled out like the meal deals, like I don't think like McDonald's would give you the option to get like a large fry and a medium drink. Yeah. So that to me is anti-consumer, right?
So Blessed Red, that's not anti-consumer, man. And he says if you don't have wired headphones, it is anti-consumer. You can't use what you have. Blessed, Sony's upfront, and we said this, and Logic just said this. They're letting you know what the requirements of the device are.
Yeah, it's not a trick.
Yeah, it's not. They're not pulling the wool of your eye here. Of your head here. I mean, it's not. You can either decide as a consumer that you're going to buy or not buy. I mean, I don't. Again, the issue. The issue that I have again is people using anti-consumer because they don't like something, and just because
because it doesn't meet their requirements.
Yeah, it just because exactly, it doesn't meet their personal requirements. That's not anti-consumer. I mean, that's if my bare minimum, and it has been, if my bare minimum is that every car that I buy has to have a 220 horsepower engine or above, it's not anti-consumer for them to build cars that don't have a 220 horsepower engine. Yeah, it's like, Hamp's got a pair of like Pirelli tires on his car that he bought a Honda Civic. He can't use his Pirellis. They don't fit. Is that anti-consumer? Is Honda being anti-consumer? Because the wheel well or the suspension of the car, whatever it is, doesn't support those types of tires? So he's saying Blessed Red's saying now, just because you know what the requirements are doesn't mean it's not anti-consumer. Lodge just finished talking about how Apple took away the headphone jack.
No, Blessed Red. What I said was, if you're going to make the statement that not having Bluetooth in this device is anti-consumer or is more anti-consumer, or in this case, what Mark has asserted was that even Apple wouldn't do that. I was like, you can't use that label and use that and not draw an equivalency to Apple removing the headphone jack. I didn't like Apple removing the headphone jack, but I didn't apply the label anti-consumer.
Yes, Blessed Red. It's exactly what it is. Just because you know what the requirements are doesn't mean it's not anything. No, the fact that you know the requirements are doesn't make is what I can't even talk.
Look, there are some people who don't get the things that they like and they get angry about it. If you feel it's anti-consumer, then apply that label and don't buy it. I don't know why we're having the conversation.
Yeah, but again, it's not the fact that you know the requirements up front is what makes that is what makes that it's why that's not anti-consumer. He's saying what Apple did was just anti-consumer.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
He's saying what Apple did was anti-consumer. Again, Blessed, look, I don't disagree with you if you don't like that Apple did that, but the labeling of anti-consumer, how you're applying it, it's misused. Because here's the thing: if Apple does that and it really bothers you in the market, you have an option. You go elsewhere. You go to Android. You pick up another phone that allows you to use a 3.5 millimeter jack. Like I don't like. I don't know.
Hey, and Hero Down Under, I did want to ask. So are you reading the specs and the FAQ that's the way it works, that you can? Because what that's suggesting is you're using audio that's being routed through your PS5 to the device.
Oh, I don't know. He's now saying Nintendo's taking away the Mario 30th anniversary game from the digital store, even though it's digital. Even though it's a digital game, is anti-consumer. I'm not able to buy said product now because it's gone. That's not anti-consumer. It's just that they pulled the game from the store. That doesn't make it anti-consumer.
I mean, I'll tell you what's anti-consumer. What's anti-consumer was Microsoft buying Nokia and then shutting them down like within a few months and no longer building Windows Phone. That was anti-consumer because they took Nokia phones entirely off the market when Nokia phones would have been fine still putting Symbian on them, and people would want those. So there's your anti-consumer example.
No, it's not anti-consumer. Blessed, you are taking your personal feelings about something that you don't like and applying the label of anti-consumer. That's not anti-consumer. Just read the definition of anti-consumer again. Anti-me is not anti-consumer.
Yeah, but that's the way some people come to use that term. It's gives them a reason to storm the Bastille.
Blessed, please read a book. Read a book on anti-consumer practices, please. Read case law. Do something. Jesus Jones.
Hey, you know what is a pro-consumer move? Is Phil Spencer talking to Larian and getting them to put Baldur's Gate 3 on the Xbox.
Yeah, thank you for pulling me out of this rabbit hole, by the way. Logic, no, seriously, thank you. No, that's not the definition. I just read the definition. Oh, my God. You know, Logic, we always have one in the chat. We always have one.
Yeah, I'm gonna use my rubric as it's all, an anti-consumer company can only be designated such if they have better Business Bureau ratings. If they don't have bad BBB ratings, then they aren't anti-consumer. And I'll just leave it at that.
All right. So yes, Phil Spencer did a very pro-consumer thing. He actually he's all right. So we know about the development issues. Speaking of split screen, with Baldur's Gate 3 not coming to the Xbox Series X or Xbox Series consoles, and you know, it's releasing on the Sony PlayStation September 6th, I think, right? You get the date right? September 6th?
Correct. Yeah. Early access September 3rd.
Yeah. So Lurian's, I can't even talk. Man, you know what? I'm still tired, man, from my work trip to Florida. It was a lot, man. It was a lot in a lot in like 2 days, man. So Baldur's Gate 3 will launch, this is according to Games Radar, Baldur's Gate 3 will launch on Xbox this year after Larian and Phil Spencer found a solution, and that solution was to bypass that parity clause that Microsoft essentially Microsoft has with the Xbox Series X and Series S. And according to Larian Studios, they are super happy to confirm that after meeting Phil Spencer yesterday, we found a solution that allows us to bring Baldur's Gate 3 to Xbox players this year. Still, something we've been working towards for quite some time. And all the improvements will be there with split screen co-op on Series X. Series S will not feature split screen co-op, but will also include cross-save progression between Steam and Xbox Series consoles.
So, is there a take on the street that Phil is not compromising on parity, but that requirement is misunderstood by developers and Larian specifically?
I'm sorry. What was you're saying that people are saying that Larian misunderstood?
I think there's a take on the street that there's that it wasn't Phil compromising on the parity clause, but that people misunderstand the requirements and constraints of the parity clause.
No, there is a parity clause.
Yeah, I know, but the question is split screen codified under that parity clause?
No, I mean it's the developer choice, but whatever the developer chooses to do for one, they have to do for the other, which is part of the parity clause. Is that what you're getting at?
So is the parity clause a mode or is it a performance feature?
It's a performance feature.
So performance features are not part of the parity clause, right? So resolution, graphical fidelity, frames per second, those are performance features, and those can differ between Xbox Series S and X.
Well, no, then it's a, I'm sorry, it's not a performance. It's, you're right. It's a what's it called? Features.
So like, it's a feature. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. Because I always think like perform, like I I tend to think like co-op, like as a performance thing, because like it's doing it, hence the performance of doing. Yeah, but no, it's features, meaning that both Series X and Series S have to have the same features.
I don't know, man. I think there are some Xbox fans that assert that split screen co-op is actually performance and not a mode.
No, it's a mode. It's not performance. Performance would be because oh my god, are you serious?
I'm quite serious.
because if there was a performance clause, then I can't. It's too late. It's too late in the evening. I can't. I don't understand that community. I really don't.
So a tweet that I'm reading now.
Series X. So if Series X is doing 120 FPS, then the Series S would have to do the same, is what they're saying.
No. They're saying that is an exception.
Oh, so that's an exception.
And so is split screen. So they're saying the Baldur's Gate 3 Xbox Series S parity conversation is weird, only because it again feels like one of unrealistic expectations. We know the S is on lower hardware spec, but people want the exact same feature set. The S is great, but I understand that it has limitations. That is coming from a pro Xbox platform.
Okay, Blessed Red, I'm going to say this to you one more time. Here's the thing: you don't have to buy any of those things. You still have a choice as a consumer. That should be the obvious to why it's not anti-consumer. That should be the easiest thing. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Logic.
Yeah. And so that's the question. I mean, that's the swirl going around now. Is people who are maybe I can use the term defending, who are claim that split screen co-op is really a performance feature and not necessarily a mode.
It's not a performance feature. You're right, because performance features, and I could see how they would confuse it, because I just did that because I think about like doing, right? But it's not. You're right. Performance is frames, resolution, and no, there's no parity clause for performance on the Xbox Series consoles. They are, however, though, features that have the parity clause, and those would be things like co-op, split screen, things like that. And it doesn't have to be split screen. It can be just co-op, right?
Right.
It could be how that co-op is implemented. I mean, that's, but it's not things like FPS. Performance is FPS, graphical fidelity, ray tracing, those things.
Yep. So a couple, you got a super chat, and then one question in chat is can Series S owners create a class action because of that? Mr. Tennis, I honestly don't know. There are things I've researched from a legal aspect, but I'm not a legal expert. I would defer to Hogue Law for that. Although I would warn you that when you ask that question, you may be led wrong. But
oh man,
you've been forewarned.
Look, I mean, and the other thing too is, when Microsoft, and it's interesting, they actually, there is a YouTube video that's going around, because I saw it today on Twitter, and I've seen this YouTube video before, but it's been set to private on the Xbox YouTube channel, where they talk about features, the parity of or the Xbox Series consoles, the Series S and Series X will have the same core gaming experiences and performance.
Yeah, that's the thing that's not a good look, in my opinion. I hate to use such a base term as that, but
no, it's not. It's not. They haven't lived up to that expectation with the Series S, and they say that. They say this in the video. It's
to have a video that you now tuck behind a wall so that people can't see it based on your original marketing. That's problematic.
Yeah, no, I don't think that to me is not. Yeah, the optics of it don't look good, in my opinion.
Much like I said, giving review copies of Starfield to influencers who are pro Xbox is also not a good look.
Yeah.
At the same time, you give them to the professionally paid media.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I don't. Yeah. We talked about that last week on BRAP, but no, you're right. And I don't know why the Xbox community is conflating those things. Again, I'm not surprised. It's probably the more extreme fanatical side of that community that's doing that. And I'm not surprised. there's one individual that tweeted out today that he basically said, hold on a second, I need to find this tweet. I don't want to. He basically said if the Xbox Series X was dropped to $200, would people still be upset about split screen co-op missing? And it's like, no, it's not about. This isn't about the price of the Series S. It's about the promise of what was supposed to be delivered by Microsoft of the Series S.
But I would also say in that specific use case, right, it's really kind of twisted, right, to come at it from that perspective, because my whole point of split screen co-op and this whole discussion of nobody uses it, nobody plays it, again, looking at things myopically through the Coke bottle lens, right, of your own use case. Again, we just talked about PlayStation Portal, right, and things that people have in their homes and kind of how, social economics looks and how demographics look across, at least let's just say, the United States. There are people who bought the Xbox Series S because it was the lower price console, because that was the best thing to be accommodated by their budget, who are in those scenarios that have the one television screen where there are children in the household that play the game, that don't have multiple consoles, right? And those are the exact type of people that are in the use case in this scenario that may be interested in split screen co-op. So to say, if I'm going to take that feature away, that mode away, right, from people who are in the exact target demographic that probably fit the scenario where they would be interested in split screen co-op, that doesn't make a lot of sense. It doesn't really show an understanding of the market. So this is kind of a weird take to come at it, and it seems like a distraction and a deflection round, right? To make it about price. Well, when in fact price is the exact thing that tells you who's buying that console.
Well, yeah, exactly. And the other thing too is to go back to what they said. I mean, this is part of that video that's been set to private now, where Jason Ronald says, I believe that's his name. He's the engineer over at Microsoft behind Xbox Series consoles, but he said you could expect the same experience in features on the Series S. The only difference being the only difference between the Series S is just that you're experiencing the same features at a reduced rendering resolution. I mean, so this is. I just don't. I don't know how people are conflating the performance thing and the feature sets. I don't understand that. That's and I haven't seen that on Twitter, by the way. I just I don't know, man. These conversations are frustrating sometimes.
So I think you had a couple of super chats.
Yeah, I'll get to super chats here, and it's frustrating because again, I think as consumers, like hold these companies accountable. You want to talk about anti-consumer behavior, Blessed Red? Doing what consumers are doing and conflating these things and making excuses for trillion-dollar corporations, that's anti-consumer behavior. There's no accountability. Anyhow. Let me grab these super chats. Victory with the $5 super chat says, so games are now allowed to release incomplete on Series S. Phil is dropping feature parity, but his ass isn't dropping price parity. Well, thank you for that super chat. And then Victory again with the $10 super chat says, this opens an interesting can of worms. If this is going to be a thing going forward, Series S owners have to pay $200, a $200 upgrade in order to avoid having to do research for which features were missing. I'm not sure. You lost me the $200 upgrade. Oh, I see what you're saying. They'll have to buy the Series X. Okay. That's the $200 upgrade. Yeah, I don't think that Series S owners are going to, be doing research per se. Maybe some will, but I think that the Series S is being picked up probably by different consumer that maybe doesn't really care about the 4K 120, They just want to cheap entry point to next gen console. They don't have to have all the bells and whistles.
Right, but what he's saying is this. What he's saying, if people have to play Where's Waldo, right? With what modes are missing from this game, right? What thing is missing from this game, right? When it's not. I mean, the problem that this opens in consumer education, consumer information, consumer awareness is that I mean, I don't know if it's going to go down this path, but this starts to look like potentially becoming ad hoc, right? The nice thing, the good thing about, hey, this box is will have the exact same games as the Series X with these exceptions. That's a blanket statement. It's a common rubric. It's not really open for interpretation or misunderstanding. It should be patently clear and obvious to you that if a game on the Xbox Series X does something at 4K 60, it is going to do it on Series S at 1440p, right? But now you have this thing of, but there can be this exception and that exception, and that's what Victory is suggesting, may become problematic for some people. And they may feel compelled that, am I being forced, right, or incentivized kind of falsely, right, to upgrade to the Series X.
Yeah, someone actually mentioned to me on Twitter that Microsoft is going to be working with Larian Studios to bring split screen to Series X. And actually, Kubini Gaming says BRAP Xbox said today split screen still coming, parity stands. It does, but it's they're making the exception that in order to have this game release sooner than later, that it doesn't have to be there day one.
And it doesn't stand the way it's codified now. The way it's codified now is it says at launch.
Well,
right?
that was my point. That's
what's
what
happening?
I said, yeah. Go ahead, Logic.
Yeah, so it's either, and I mean, and again, while we're saying it's coming, right? 60 frames per second was supposed to be coming to Redfall, but that hasn't happened yet, right? So, again, you can make choices to buy products on the promise that something is coming down the road, but you should recognize that doesn't always happen.
Yeah.
And when they decide and choose not to do something, you've already paid your money, and it's not like they're refunding you any of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, like they and the other thing too is again, I'm not surprised by this considering how big Baldur's Gate 3 is, and is that a situation that Microsoft wants where arguably they have one of the largest, most popular games of 2023 not making on their console? And this begs the question. I mean, is you got to imagine that if another game launches that's a huge success and there's issues with parity, Microsoft may, Phil Spencer may do the same thing. I think Victory said something about opening a can of worms. I guess, what I'm wondering now, Logic, is this kind of open up for developers to be like, hey, wait a minute. You made this exception for Baldur's Gate 3 by not having the launch parity. Can we have that same exception?
Well, right, and we've talked about that. We saw that with the Apple case, right? That when it got out that Apple had different deals for different people, that people started going back to Apple and saying, hey, well, why do I have to pay 30% when that guy doesn't? Right. And Apple had to come up with new programs and new definitions, where there was codification of, where those exceptions happen. The other thing is, like it was said, Microsoft is swinging additional support in Larian's direction to help them with that split screen. I don't think of Larian as a poor decision-making studio or a studio to be taken advantage of. And so I always talk about engineering level of effort and how people sometimes don't recognize that as a matter of cost and investment cost. But, so if split screen is going to come to the Series S, it's not going to come to the Series S because Larian is going to have to invest, hundreds or thousands of additional engineering labor hours to make it work solely and by themselves or as their own burden. They're getting assistance from Microsoft. So the question is how, is Microsoft going to do that for everyone? Where does that end? that's finite capacity. They're not going to do that for everyone, and they're not going to do it every single time. And just like somebody in the chat mentioned, right? It's because of a game that's got this much buzz and this much visibility, but there will be plenty of other instances where that doesn't happen, right? And what does that impact?
Yeah. And I don't think Microsoft can afford to miss out on a game this big on their platform.
Well, they can't, but I mean, we also recognize then that part of the mental math that's going on, maybe sadly to say, is probably some decision making about, well, are we going to spend time, swinging support in the direction of Redfall, or are we going to spend time swinging support in the direction of Baldur's Gate 3, right? And not necessarily that it's not necessarily that binary, but again, right, capacity is a finite quantity. And Baldur's Gate 3 is getting assistance where, like we've talked about, Redfall is still kind of lagging behind what the expectations were set as.
Hey, Froggy, man, honestly, just stop. You got to stop coming here, man. Like, your commentary, man, like, just stop, please. It's like every week, man. It's so childish. Sorry, go ahead, Logic.
No, that was it.
Yeah. Redfall patch is still coming. They said it last patch. What got patched last time?
Yeah, I don't know, but it was a bunch of stuff that wasn't 60 frames per second.
Yeah. Let me know when the 60 FPS patch comes. Oh, 80 gig patch. Wow, 80 gig patch and no 60 FPS. Sorry, I'm just reading up on the chat here. I want to make sure that there weren't any. I think I got all the super chats.
Yeah, and Victory's comment that I didn't talk about earlier, absolutely correct, and how I interpreted, his super chat. Says, I don't want to see game advertisements and then wonder what's going to be missing from the Series S version I bought under false pretenses.
Yeah, Blessed Ransom knows, did we talk about Immortals? What about Immortals? We talked about the performance issues of Immortals, but we didn't really get into it.
It is, I will say, from
Unreal Engine 5. It's running in like 720p resolution, I think, on current gen consoles. Go ahead, Logic. You were saying?
Yeah, I want to say, I got to look it up again. I want to say that so it's at on Metacritic, it's at a 66 on PC. It's at a 71 on PlayStation 5. It's at an 82 on Xbox. So does this mean that the best version of this game, this is breaking the mold that the best version is on Xbox?
Maybe
Xbox Era gave it an 88.
Of course they did.
Weird.
Yeah,
Weird.
They gave that game an 88. They gave Redfall an 80, and they gave Armored Core like a 60.
Yeah.
That's all you need to know about Xbox Era.
Trying to see any. Nobody. IGN gave it an 80 on Xbox.
Yeah. Well, okay. I mean, that's fine. I mean, that's Yeah, but it sounds like the Unreal Engine 5 is just it's a very demanding engine from what I know. Slummo had made some commentary about it. And Gratov said,
yeah, well, didn't Slummo retweet the thing from Digital Foundry that said something about people were applauding Unreal Engine 5, and I think maybe Linneman was saying, you need to understand that even with a high-power PC, like Unreal Engine 5 can only do so much or something like that.
Yeah, I think he said that, yeah. Yeah, Digital Foundry, I got to go back and listen to what they said, but they had some commentary about the Unreal Engine 5.
I mean, again, I think, I'm not, I can't see what Froggy says in chat anymore. I think just one of the things I would maybe caution people to, I don't think either BRAP or I qualified this thing of Phil Spencer, making an exception to get Baldur's Gate 3 on the Series S. I don't think any of us qualified that as a big deal. or extrapolated or quantified like what the impact was to Microsoft or Xbox or consumers of the industry. We simply said that it is and is, right? And that it raises other questions. And if, I mean, I hate to be gender specific about it, but quite frankly, if you have your panties in a twist because we're asking questions, then we're just having an entirely different conversation about gaming than you are. I know some people, and some people who are in the chat who come here every week never ask any questions when it comes to certain platforms. And I'm sorry, but you're just coming to the wrong podcast. If you're coming to a podcast that just says, I have zero questions about this, and that does no analysis, and that doesn't talk about addressable markets, the market overall, where the industry is, different financial dynamics, different legal dynamics, then you're just at the wrong podcast.
Well, that's because Froggy goes to podcasts, like the podcasts that don't ask those questions. He goes to podcasts where people come in there foaming at the mouth, hitting each over the heads with clubs. And that's pretty much it. And you're right. We didn't say this was a big deal. We didn't say that this was bad for Microsoft, bad for consumers. We just said, look, this is a different change of pace, or this is a pivot for what Microsoft said about parity as relates to the Xbox Series S. And then what we said is, Microsoft presumably doesn't want to be, or doesn't want to. That more or less it makes sense when it is, because considering how big this game is right now. Right, this game may be one of those games we look back at 5 years, 10 years from now and be like, whoa, remember Baldur's Gate 3? I mean, this game could be a game of the year. Could be the game of the year for 2023.
Yeah, and it's a breakout game for Larian Studios.
Oh, yeah,
right? This is, I mean, quite frankly,
other thing, yeah.
I mean, I don't want to downplay Baldur's Gate 3, but Baldur's Gate 3, it's not like this is Larian Studios' first rodeo. Like, their games have been at this level of quality the whole time. It's just that now they're doing it with a license, and they're doing it at expanded scope.
Yeah, here's what Froggy did. He comes in gaslights. Go back and listen to this last half hour of your podcast. Like, Froggy, like, seriously, like stop. Like, you do this every week. Just don't come here and listen. And like, I don't.
And what's weird? What's weird to me is,
I'm sorry. It's so weird that you come here, you complain, but you come here every week. You clearly have an issue with what we're discussing. Why do you come here then? Like, seriously, ask yourself that question. It's like you're glutted for pain and suffering if it bothers you that much. Like, why? Like, be an adult and don't come here if it bothers you that much, because clearly it does. Because you do this every week.
Or he's part of the coordinated Xbox law enforcement division who's responsible for running patrols and going out and enforcing brand defense at various podcasts.
Yeah, you just come and you come here and gaslight, say, "Oh, go back and listen to the first half of your podcast," or whatever it was you just said. You don't provide any specifics. You just don't like what we're saying about your favorite brand, and that's weird because I'm assuming you're an adult. And again, if you don't like something as an adult, you go elsewhere. You put your big boy pants on, you go to another podcast.
Yeah, and again, I go back to none of us said the sky is falling, London Bridge is falling down, but it's simply asking questions. And quite frankly, right, I've said this multiple times, like, if you're in the gaming conversation, or quite frankly, any conversation about technology, engineering, anything that is as complex as some of the topics we've talked through, to not ask questions, then I don't understand that. That skews very much in the direction of somebody who believes that the earth is flat. And I don't really understand that. Like, you can be skeptical and you can not agree, but then I would expect you to come back with a counter hypothesis as to why. And if you're here just to make assertions and have an inability to articulate the why of your argument, then again, I'm not really listening. I'm not really interested in paying attention to anything that you're saying. Which is, again, why I can no longer see what Froggy is saying in chat. Mr. Tennis says, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, again, like we're using tangible evidence when we discuss these things. We brought up the marketing behind the Series S. We talked about the parity clause. We talked about Microsoft, Phil Spencer saying, you know what, no parity clause in this case for launch. I mean, what? Look, there's been documented issues with this Series S. It happened with Halo Infinite. But nowhere in that sentence where we've discussed about some of the development issues with the Series S have we said, bad Series S, it's terrible. Xbox sucks. No, we're just talking about the issues that either developers have talked about in developing for the Series S, or things that are challenges that teams have had with implementing certain features that they couldn't do because of the Series S. And those are the facts. Those have been documented. 343i, Larian Studios. Like you want us to just not talk about those things so you feel better?
Well, this is the other thing you and I have talked about, BRAP, is the fact that people like him come in here and will say every single thing that we say that is a criticism of Xbox or asks a question about Xbox. However, you and I have also been on the show multiple times in an argument with Mooch, on Crossfire, in an argument with Mooch, where we've said that the Series S is not necessarily a mistake. There are problems with it. There are problems that need to be managed. And what we said in this instance, which is the exact same thing that we've said about many, many other things, is that it is not necessarily solely and inherently a mistake or a misstep by Microsoft when a thing happens. It's not necessarily bad that a game gets delayed. What is bad is about how Xbox handles it, how it markets it, how they manage their PR. How they do things like come on a stage and tell you and assert that you're going to be playing a bunch of games in 12 months, and then come on stage again in January and skate by the things they said you're going to be playing in 12 months as if you're too dumb to remember what they said last June. And then come out 6 weeks later and tell you that 2 of those big games are delayed, as if they didn't know that 6 weeks ago when they came on stage and talked to you in January. Right? Both BRAP and I have said on this that not everyone needs an Xbox Series X. That is not necessarily what everyone wants. I just sat here and talked about how that console is targeted at demographics of the market where that purchase makes the most sense from them. But I'm assuming this is what Froggy's saying, but Froggy, you never give us any credit for saying that. You never bring up the things that we've said that support choices that Xbox has made. I've said many times that Xbox going cloud is playing to their strengths, that Xbox going subscription service is playing to their strengths. I have only said that those things are problematic and potentially have a negative impact on the industry when you combine Game Pass, the acquisition of Activision Blizzard, and what I see in this rise of its consumer base that are solely concerned and are fixated on low cost of access. Those 3 things create what, in my opinion, is a dangerous dynamic. But software as a service, I have no problems with that. I work in software engineering and heavily invested in the enterprise, and software as a service makes sense. I've said numerous times on this show that gaming gets pushed in the direction that enterprise goes because they just get driven to a point where that makes the most sense. Doing anything otherwise is just bleeding money. But you never bring up positive points in our case when we bring up those points. You only get your panties in a bunch when we bring up something that you perceive is negative about Xbox. And again, I apologize for being gender specific about that. I can't think of a better analogy right now.
No,
so that's why you've hit this point where you're below the line, and it doesn't make any sense for us to pay attention to you anymore.
Yeah, actually, he said something in the chat. He goes, "Oh, I guess I got Logic upset to the point where he blocked me." But now he's getting deleted by Brian Baker, who's a moderator here in the live chat. But see, Froggy, the problem is that you come in here and you gaslight. You don't articulate any thought. You're just upset that we're asking questions and that we're talking about things that have happened that have been documented with the Series S. But to your point, Logic, and this is my frustration too, when you don't massage people like Froggy all the time, who are, I'm going to assume that he's probably a diehard Xbox, fanboy. Like part of being a consumer is understanding that it's okay to be critical of the products or things that you enjoy or that you prefer. It's okay to and we have on this show. I mean, we were just praising Starfield earlier in the show. Well, Froggy, I'm assuming based on your behavior, again, you come to the show, you complain. You say that, you say all these things about go back, and you come here every week. You clearly have an issue with the things that we discuss. Why do you come here then? That's the question mark here. Like, why if you don't like what we're saying, because you clearly don't, because you express it every week, why do you come back here?
Yeah, and let's get something clarified. You're not blocked because I'm upset. You're blocked because you've descended below the intellectual line that I established as the minimum for me to pay attention to you. That's why you're blocked, because you've just become a total waste heat sink on my time.
Yeah, like you just don't add any value to the conversation, and then you're disingenuous because you sidestep the fact that we've praised some of the things that Microsoft has done. We have talked about how we're excited for Starfield. We have talked about their cloud and playing to their strengths, which I think you just said, Logic. We've talked about all these things.
I mean, here, let me help you out. If you want to have an actual useful conversation that is an argument about the things that we brought up on the parity clause, then make an argument that Microsoft didn't need to make a compromise about the parity clause to get Baldur's Gate 3 on board the platform. Make an argument that suggests and indicates and is backed up by data that indicates that Microsoft's profile would have been just as healthy from a financial perspective, from revenue gain, from its partnership with developers, if it had maintained and held its line on the parity clause and not broken it to make an exception for Larian. Or make an argument by pointing to an actual objective, tangible, evidentiary piece of documentation that indicates that people making the claim that Larian misunderstood the parity clause is accurate. But you haven't done that. And that's why I say, so here I have, in literally 30 seconds, decomposed in 3 different ways, a tangible argument that you could have made that would have been a better use of my time. Having spent almost 0 gray matter on doing it, I was able to do that in 30 seconds. You said go back and listen to the last 30 minutes of your podcast and what you guys talked about. In 30 minutes, you yourself have proven an inability to actually decompose the facts and approach them in an objective, tangible manner. I have achieved with your own argument, which you couldn't do in 30 seconds, in 30 minutes. And that's why I say your conversation with us, if you want to call it that, has just been an utter waste of time. When I can prove your own points for you or suggest how you go about proving your points better than you can, then why would I bother having a conversation with you?
He's saying that he said, I guess my question statement earlier of did it seem like a good compromise to get the game on Xbox sooner? Why not carve out one feature in one game was not constructive enough?
Yeah, apparently not.
Yeah, I didn't see that. But again, I mean, if that's what you're saying, I mean, I don't understand. I mean, you know what? I'm done. I just think he wants attention.
Yeah, and I get that it may have been perceived as being sarcastic, but we opened this conversation by saying Phil Spencer did a pro-consumer thing by going out and making an exception to the parity clause to get Baldur's Gate 3 on his platform.
Yeah, and I thought that, it makes sense for them to do it. This is arguably one of the largest games. Like why have your fan base miss out on a game like Baldur's Gate 3 because of a parity clause?
Yeah, I think we said that multiple times.
Yeah,
but what we said was as a byproduct that raises several other questions.
Yeah, like what does this mean now? Like that they sidestepped the day and date parity clause? Does this open up the floodgates for other developers to say, hey, wait a minute, like we want the same, we want the same kind of agreement. Like I'm curious to see how that pans out. It's not a slant against Xbox. It's a question. What does this mean now for the parity clause now that they made that exception?
Right, which is a routine thing that we say on this show, right? Is that a decision that's being made, we can clearly see the benefit of that in the short term. The question is what is the impact from that in the long term?
Yeah, super MQD, whatever. I don't think Xbox could be sued for not being. I
I mean, they could be. The question is just, would it be successful?
Well, yeah, they could be sued, but yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, just like the gamers who sued for, the ABK deal, whatever it was. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if anything's been proven over the last 18 months, it's that Microsoft will flex their, $3 trillion, $2 trillion legal muscle to achieve their objectives right within the judiciary, however they so need to. One thing I wanted to bring up was one comment in chat. Could you argue that a lot more people are playing video games now and are interested in Baldur's Gate 3 compared to their previous games? Yeah, absolutely. Just because it's Dungeons and Dragons and it's gotten so much buzz and it's so much in the zeitgeist. I mean, the overall gaming market has increased, but like I've said, part of the problem with these things, or some of the knock-on effects from that are, we've commented, right? We're waiting to see how this lands on PlayStation with its user base, and I know somebody was in here making the argument that Baldur's Gate 3 is the type of game that PlayStation users play. Again, it'll just be interesting. We ask questions about whether or not, the PlayStation consumer base is going to respond, with a lot of sales to Baldur's Gate 3. When people start getting the die rolls and seeing the dialogue choices and things of that nature. Diablo 4 sold well, as we see by it being in the numbers in MPD, but what we also hear is a lot of, this is super repetitive. It's a lot of the same. I didn't necessarily know that this was going to be so grindy, that it was going to have so much of a loot loop. And what the hell do you mean that this is the way seasons are? But again, right, the people who have been ensconced in, Diablo games forever knew that was coming and weren't surprised. But a lot of gamers who were attracted to Diablo 4 because it was the first time it was showing up on consoles at the same exact time as on PC were surprised. And I think the same thing will be true of Baldur's Gate 3. The question is just, to what extent does that kind of dirty the shine that Baldur's Gate 3 has on it right now when it's only deployed on PC?
Yeah, and we talked about that. Was it last week?
Well, the week before, I think, because we skipped the show this week.
I think. Oh, that's right. No, I think that it. I don't disagree with you, Logic. I think some people are going to play this game, and they're just not going to dig how deep the RPG mechanics are. Just how much time you have to put into studying your character's attributes, strengths, weaknesses, spells, things like that. Like how much effort you have to put into each engagement that you have, and learning how to use the map to your advantage. I mean, there's some strategy, some thought that goes into this game. Now, granted, you can play it story mode, which I don't know how that compares. And I'm playing the what is it? I guess what do they call it? Not the easy mode. I guess the balance mode, I guess, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
And I'm not playing the hard mode, because that's I'm not doing that. But I just think it's one of those games where, if you don't like those, if you don't like D&D, if you don't like, turn-based combat, if you don't like combat that requires some strategy and figuring out, what characters you should bring into, a particular fight engagement, what spells you should have, how you should level up your characters, some deep leveling systems here. This game may not be for you. If you want to pick up and play experience, if you want something similar to Final Fantasy 16, this is not that game, or that kind of game.
Yep. And you had one other super chat too.
Okay, let me grab that super chat real quick. Andy Hart with the $5 pound says, do you believe FSR3 could help with Starfield's frame rate? What do you think, Logic? I don't know.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. But I mean, my feeling on it is also, I think if you go back like about 2 weeks, I felt like there was much stronger suspicion and thought that FSR3 was going to make a shadow drop, surprise debut, reveal that it was arriving simultaneously alongside Starfield. But I feel like I've seen and heard less confidence that is going to be how that unfolds, walking up to the actual early access date. So I'm not, I'm not as leaned over as far over my skis that's what's going to happen. I suspect it'll be later this fall. I think maybe somebody knows when DLSS 3.5 is coming. I want to say that's November, maybe. So I feel like FSR 3 is going to be further down the road towards that direction, but I don't know for certain.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. Yeah. Hey, look, anytime we can get more frames, I'm okay with that. More frames, the better.
Yep.
Do we know if Starfield's going to have 60 frames on PC? Is that
we still don't know.
Oh man, that actually concerns me a little bit. That leads me to think that maybe this game is going to be 30 FPS on PC.
No, I mean I don't think it's going to be 30. I think it may not be stable 60 at 4K is what I think maybe will happen.
Okay. But I'm just wondering why we haven't got any confirmation on what it's going to perform.
I think because it's not the norm for companies for PC releases to like specifically state. I think that happens sometimes by exception, but I don't think it's the norm. They normally just say. They normally just say, what the minimum recommended and high end specs are for the game, but we typically make assumptions about what that means. Oh, but I do feel Starfield is the level of release that maybe from a marketing perspective, I would have considered clarifying what that was on PC. More so this time around than on any other release, just because you've created a lot of FUD by the 4K 30 on Series X and by the announcement of AMD as the exclusive partner for Starfield. That just created a lot of, in my mind, a lot of questions that I would have been more upfront about addressing directly.
Yeah, I'm wondering, like, if it's not, outside of a 4K mode PC, maybe 30 FPS. I guess what I'm wondering too is, I'm just wondering why we haven't seen what the game's going to run at 1440p or 1080p.
Yeah, I mean, just because, like I said, it's not the norm for PC games to advertise that. But like I said, in some cases we see that happening. But I think I feel like I see it happening when people are like super bold and confident about how their game's going to perform, or like I said, when there's a lot of FUD, right? When there's a lot of uncertainty and doubt and lack of confidence from consumers. It seems like some publishers, some devs will address that head on, and that's generally my own preference, right, in how to address things rather than to kind of shirk it. But for whatever reason, they chose not to do it with Starfield.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like at least minimum requirements, 16 gigabytes of RAM is required. They require an SSD, or I think they recommend an SSD. Here we go. Let me look at the, hold on a sec here. All right, Starfield PC minimum system requirements. Let's see here. This is according to Windows Central, by the way. All right. With these settings, I believe you'll be able to play 720p or 1080p with a solid frame rate of 30 FPS on low settings. And this is the Ryzen 5 2600X for CPU, Intel Core i7 6800K, and AMD or NVIDIA T70 Ti or Radeon RX 5700 GPU. The recommended Starfield specs. They're saying this is what will enable you to turn settings up to medium or high and enjoy decently high frame rate while playing at 1080p or 1440p. Ryzen 5 3600X, Intel i5 600K, 600 or 16 gigabytes of RAM, and the GPU's the RX 6800 XT NVIDIA GeForce RTX 2080. SSD required.
So that seems to suggest to me, and maybe Cryptopsy or somebody else in the chat would know, that seems to suggest to me that, which would just be weird.
Hey, Blessed, by the way, we were talking about the 4K 30 FPS, sir.
Yeah.
And not 30 FPS in general, just 30 FPS 4K.
Yeah.
So that's not the burn that you think it is, Blessed.
I don't even know what you're saying. The only time I would talk about 30 frames per second would be in reference to 4K.
Yeah, but that's what I said. I was like, is this thing going to be 30 FPS? And then I follow up with the 1440p, 1080p. But he's trying to do what people do. Oh, burn, man.
Yeah, I think that's just because
he's saying it won't be locked 30 FPS regardless. We're talking about 4K. So you're saying it won't be locked 4K 30 FPS? Or you saying it won't be locked at 30 FPS at 4K resolution? Is that what you're saying, Blessed?
I mean, my whole point is we don't know, right? Red Dead Redemption 2 launched on PC capped at 60 frames per second. It didn't get DLSS till later, and that's when they uncapped it. So my point is that we just don't know. I mean, and we don't ever know until a company actually makes an official statement about it. I know people like to make guesses and assumptions and beliefs and whatever.
That's actually the what we're discussing here, that we don't know.
Right, but we have people in chat who never like us asking any questions.
Yeah, but this is Blessed Rest saying, why would it ever be locked at 4K 30 FPS only? Again, we're asking. This is why we're asking the question. We don't know for sure. He's saying, I've never heard of a game being locked at 30 FPS. I want to say the Souls games on PC may have been locked at 30 FPS.
Yeah, but you asked the question, and I said I doubt that it will be locked at 4K 30, but it may not run stable at a 4K 60, right, without frame rate drops. We said that on the show. That's the discussion we're having. Why is somebody in chat thinking they're clapping back about that and then patting themselves on the back as if they've achieved some victory?
Because this is where Blessed achieves victories in life, on YouTube channels, live chats and channels.
Look, I'm not going to say this applies to you specifically. Listen, I've blocked you in chat too, but I will say there are people who make tweets and quite frankly come into this chat on YouTube and just quite frankly, I will say, make commentary that reeks of. I'm not going to say that. I'll move on. So yeah, what I was going to say about the RX 6800, the recommended specs of RX 6800 XT and RTX 2080.
Blessed again. We don't know. That's the point. We don't know. We don't know. We don't know if it's going to be 4K 30 FPS. We don't know how demanding this game's going to be. I don't and we're just asking the question. No one is saying that it's going to, in fact, be locked at 4K 30 FPS.
Yeah, but the thing I was thinking about
but people start using the verbiage like bruh. I mean, oh man, I already know. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, he's popping chaff rounds. Yeah. So yeah, what I was gonna say about the 6800 XT and the RTX 2080 is that that seems to mean that it is. What's the thing that I want to say? That
again, no one said that we truly think the game will be locked. We're asking the question if it will be. I don't I give up.
Yeah, I think what I'm trying to say, Cryptopsy, is does that mean that it is more performant with ray tracing, and that's why you only need an RTX 2080 versus a 6800 XT, or is that saying ray tracing, either isn't implemented or isn't robustly implemented, such that the better raster rate But still, but even then, like it's just weird to me that you would need a 6800 XT but only need a 28. That seems to indicate something about features and performance modes that are implemented in the game, particularly since DLSS is not implemented. Well, since we have indications that DLSS may not be implemented.
Yeah, let's see here. AMD has broken down Starfield's PC performance in 3 categories: heroic, 1080p, epic, 1440p, and legendary 4K, as well as informing players which shiny new CPU they need to unlock those graphical settings. For 1080p, AMD saying AMD Ryzen 7600 CPU and AMD Radeon RX 7600 GPU. For 1440p, they're saying AMD Ryzen 707 or AMD Ryzen the 7700X CPU and the Radeon RX 6800 series. For 4K, AMD saying Ryzen 7 7800X 3D CPU, AMD Radeon RX 7900 XT GPU.
So where are you guys seeing that?
I just pulled this out. GamingBible.com. I just pulled this up on a quick Google search. Any of those all right. Any of those CPUs, GPUs mean anything to you? Because I'm not as familiar with the AMD CPUs, GPUs as you are, Logic.
Yeah, I'm not. Oh wait, there it is. Okay, hold on. Yeah, I needed to look at that. I mean, I heard you running through it. For some reason, this freaking site is locking up. Did you send me to some corrupt site, dude? It wouldn't scroll until I clicked the GPDR response.
Oh, really?
It must be in the UK or something.
I didn't get that.
Or Europe. That's okay. So 1080p. 1080p is a Ryzen 5 7600 and Ryzen RX 7600. 1440p is a 7700X and RX 6800, and 4K is 7800X 3D and 7900 XT. So what that means to me is beefy is the requirement.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. So if you want 4K 60, you're going to need like a beefy CPU or CPU GPU then.
I mean, you're going to need, it says you're going to need to be on a 7800X 3D, which has gaming CPU features that exceed what, most people are running for a CPU, I would say, in terms of cache.
Again, Blessed Red, you oh, dude, like seriously, like you need to understand. We're asking the question because we haven't had any confirmation just yet. That's what we're discussing here. Like no one's saying that it's not going to be a feature set.
Yeah, and even I'm a little bit suspect of this site because this site doesn't provide any links for reference. So it's saying AMD has broken it down, but it doesn't link back to where AMD says that.
Yeah.
I mean, my own PC specs are above the 1080p line. They are, I have, I guess, 2 boxes, maybe 3 that are barely above the 1440p line. I may have 1 box that is at this 4K line, but where these specs are listed at 4K, I would assume that you're going to be doing good to get 4K 60 out of this.
Mm.
So for most people, I mean, you're definitely going to be in the. I don't even think most gamers are at the 1440p band of what AMD lists. And when I say that, I'm even dropping off the people who are in the top, right, 2-3% of Steam hardware ratings, right? I'm not even talking about I'm not even talking about what is the actual bulk of the PC gaming market, which is, tons of people running hardware that is way behind, right, current generation parts. So even just amongst gamers who are running current generation parts, right, and have built or upgraded their rig.
Blessed. The fact that with modern games, we typically have some kind of idea of what kind of hardware you need for specific performance. Like that's why we're having this conversation. Go ahead, Logic.
Yeah, so I would say gamers who have built or upgraded their rigs to modern parts. I mean, so it's about 7000 series parts, right? Which came out tail end of last year, right? In regular availability. Like amongst those people, I don't know that there's a ton of them running even what AMD lists as the 1440p, right? So it's a last generation GPU at the high end, so a 6800 series, and a 7700X CPU. I don't think the bulk of the market, even in the modern era of rigs that exceed console specs, are going to be running at that hardware level.
Okay, it's going to be blessed. You shouldn't be calling anyone stupid when you don't understand what anti-consumer is. Go ahead, Logic.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting. I mean, the place we're going to get the most feedback from is from the Steam community. So we'll see what happens then.
Yeah, well, we'll find out. Well, I do have my digital deluxe edition with early access on PC, and I have a 3070 and a 1200. What's my Intel again? 12700K CPU.
Yeah, so you are running at, and again, I'll throw this out, and other people in the chat can modulate my response or correct me, but you're not even running at what AMD lists as the 1440p level. Okay,
so I won't be playing the game at 1440p.
I mean, I think your GPU is in the ballpark, but I believe your CPU is below.
Okay, so I might be playing this game at 1080p.
Interesting, super interesting that they don't list the system RAM requirement to achieve those levels.
Yeah. Anyways, I'm still excited. Regardless, I'm still excited for the game. I can't wait to play it. Yeah. $100 well spent. Yeah. Blessed, you're just going to get... I'm just going to remove everything you say now. I've lost patience with people at this point.
Yeah, and I think Brian's been saying he's going to burn stuff down if the game doesn't run above 100 frames. I don't know. Where I am is if I'm not running that game at 80 frames or higher at 1440p, now I will say 1440p on an ultra wide display, then I'll be bothered.
Yeah, well, Brian's got he's got a 4090 and a 13. I mean, he's got like his. I've seen Brian's build. Yeah.
So that's so if I'm not running at 80 frames or higher in ultra wide in 2560 by 1440p on my box that has a 7950X CPU, 64 gigabytes of RAM and a 3080 Ti, then I'll be bothered.
And it's a 125 gigabyte file too. That's before any patches.
Yeah.
I'm going to make some room on my SSD.
Yeah, I mean, I will say in all of my boxes, in all of my boxes, storage is not something that I ever have to worry about.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Might be time to upgrade my PC, maybe.
I would. Yeah, I would wait for the corner to turn into next year.
Yeah.
I mean, neither you nor I are at 2 years old.
See this,
for those boxes.
Brian Blades, Delirium Blades is gonna. He's like, yes, BRAP, do it. No, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it.
What did he say? I missed that.
When I said I was thinking about upgrading, he's like, yes, BRAP, let's do it. Nope, not doing it. What happened, Blades? What happened? Excuse me. Sorry, I'm gonna yawn. It's late. I'm still tired from my trip, my work trip to Florida. Yeah, what happened to Mooch? Mooch was supposed to upgrade his PC. He's still on that 2080 right now. I thought he was upgrading a 40 series.
I thought Mooch built an entirely new PC when he started streaming.
No, I don't.
Because remember, he'd asked me for specs, and then you said and then I gave him a set of specs that I gave him a set of specs that were not driving him to go out and spend $5,000 because I just didn't know that was his requirement. Yeah, but then you said he talked to another guy who basically gave him like the Uber specs top end for everything, and I thought you said that was the box he went off and built.
No, that's Brian Baker. That's Blades who gave him like the high end stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, Blades will have you spend like $5,000 on a PC.
Right.
Yeah, but Blades, I mean, his PC's nice. I've seen pictures of Brian Baker's PC. Like he's got a nice build. Like everything's liquid cooled, GPU, CPU. It's nice.
Yeah, I mean that's what I built when I built the 7950X 3080 Ti box. Just at the time, I think I built that before the 4000 series dropped.
Yeah,
and I don't water cool my GPU.
Yeah. No, I don't know, man. Maybe I should wait for the 50 series.
Yeah, I mean, I would if I were you, because I can't remember what your power supply was in that box.
Yeah, I don't remember what mine is either. Yeah, I might just wait. I might just do that.
Yeah.
Max Wade's got this. The whole 40 series. The whole 40 series line is structured like a McDonald's upsell menu. That's pretty funny. So the only worthy choice is the 4090.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? I mean, this will be the bellwether, right? If Starfield comes in and I put that thing in my Uber box and I'm not getting what I want at 1440p on ultra wide, then that'll cause me to ask some questions about myself and my life, what I'm doing with my PC specs. I hope that's not going to be the case, but
yeah, let's hope.
I have one box. The box that I built when you bought yours. That box I need to upgrade next January, February, whenever you bought and I built. But that one I think that has a beefy enough PSU in it. I think that one I'm just going to throw a GPU in and actually have my Linux box that has the Radeon 6700 XT in it. I'm actually going to flip that back to Windows and spend a few months trying to get this driver thing worked out where I don't have to constantly dork around with the drivers on it before I decide I'm going to go down that path in January.
Yeah. Brian's saying the 4090s. He's like the whole 40 series is pointless. Just get a 4090.
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of one of the things I mean, right? It's that we're in this weird era where like the only time you have confidence and assurances over how your box is going to handle a PC is if you're on a 4090, or I don't know. I don't know, Mr. Trent, if it's the 7900 XTX or the 7900 XT that gives you that confidence on the AMD side, but one of those two.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I might just wait to I might wait for the 50 series then before I upgrade. Yeah, I don't think, 4090 would be nice, but it's like, do I need one? Or do I just wait for the 50 series cards?
I mean, here's my problem is what I talked about earlier in the show, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't want to upgrade to a 4090 because the industry has some weird shtick going on where like they haven't settled crap out between themselves, right? That's forcing me to go to a 4090. You know, not when games are coming out from smaller studios with smaller budgets that are performant. Like that seems to be an industry problem, not a Game Logic PC spec problem.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I don't disagree. All right, Logic. BRAP's about to fall asleep, man. Like I said, I'm out here yawning, man. That's never a good sign. My brain is fried, man. Like I said, I had a long 3 days or 2.5 days, I should say. I'll have to tell you the rest. I remind me to tell you about training, the work thing that I went to. It's a lot of information, a lot in class. It was a lot, but it was fun though. It was also a good time. So, anyhow, all right. So we're gonna go ahead and wrap up the show. Let's Logic have anything. Oh, you know what, Brian? I forgot to tell you, man, that I was in Florida. I was over by actually, Brian. I was in Central Florida. I did not go to Disney, Josh. Did not go to Disney. But sorry, Logic. Anything else you want to discuss quickly, or any other?
Nope. We got through it all. We got through the major stories that were actually worthwhile talking about tonight.
All right, man. That sounds good. Well, yeah, no, I want to give everyone a big shout out, except for the agitators in the live chat. But and Brian, thank you for coming through and moderating the chat. I appreciate it as well. I'll have to I'll let you I'll let you know next time I'm in Florida. We can meet up. But yeah, Logic, thank you again, man. Always appreciate you jumping on and talking video games, talking shop, and BRAP will be back next Wednesday at the regular scheduled time at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And working on getting some industry guests on as well. We should have some great guests coming on the show here shortly. But Logic, I don't know if you want to be found, but if you do, let everyone know they can find you.
Yeah, man. You can check out my gameplay videos over on the Rounding Off Infinity Gaming channel on YouTube, or swing by the Enough to Keep Going weekly video games podcast on the E2KG Network podcasting channel on YouTube. We record and go live at 8:45 p.m. or thereabouts on Sunday nights. Sometimes we run a little bit late, so if we're not on until 9-ish, don't think that that's entirely unusual. But usually we shoot for sometime 8:45 p.m. or shortly thereafter.
All right, awesome. And then, again, BRAP will be back next Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, our regular scheduled BRAP. Everyone have a great weekend, and we'll catch you. Come hang out with us this Wednesday, the Game and Talk this Wednesday, coming up at 9 p.m. And, yeah, thank you again. We'll catch you next time.